From a kid in Paris, obsessed with a Pixar film, to standing on the grid next to the most dominant driver of his generation, Isack Hadjar has had one of the strangest, messiest, most stop-start rises in modern Formula One. He's been publicly called embarrassing by one of his own bosses. He lost a championship by stalling on the grid. He crashed before his debut race had even started. And somehow, after all of that, he still ended up in a Red Bull. But how good is Isack Hadjar really? Today, we're going to find out. Isack Alexandre Hadjar was born on September 28, 2004 in Paris. He races under a French license, but his background is French-Algerian, and that dual identity ended up becoming a massive part of his public story once he reached Formula One. We'll get to that later, because it's actually a bigger deal than people realised at the time. Here's the first thing that sets him apart, though. This is not the usual rich kid born into a racing dynasty F1 origin story. His father, Yassine Hadjar, is widely described as a scientist, specifically a quantum physics researcher. His mother, Randa, became more visible around his career later on. So instead of growing up as the son of a former Grand Prix driver or some millionaire team owner, Hadjar grew up inside a very academic, very technical kind of household. And that actually matters, because people around him later started describing his driving in exactly that same language. French media even gave him the nickname Le Petit Prost, basically the Little Prost, comparing the way he thinks his way through a race to Alain Prost, rather than just lumping him in as another aggressive young Red Bull kid. So how does a quantum physicist's son in Paris end up in a Formula One car? Well, the recurring childhood story, and I love this, is that he became obsessed with racing through the Pixar film Cars. He also did other sports as a kid. Boxing and judo are the two that come up most often, and honestly, that fits the later image of Hadjar perfectly. Someone with a bit of fight in him.
And so you're obviously still pushing forward, looking for tomorrow's last heat and then to make it into the final?
Yeah, I think I can. I'm through in the final really easily.
In 2014, he starts showing up in regional and national French karting records, minime-level competition in the Paris region, French Cup events, that sort of thing. This wasn't a Verstappen-style moment where everyone in Europe already knows the name. But in 2019, we get the answer. Kind of. He made his proper single-seater debut in French F4 and finished 7th in the championship with 1 win and 118 points. Now, that's a solid rookie season. And this is exactly where Hadjar splits off from the kind of driver everyone compares him to. If you've watched my Kimi Antonelli video, you'll know his junior career looked like a wonder kid building a brand new trophy room every single year. Hadjar's career had way more rough edges than that. 7th in French F4 as a rookie was enough to show he belonged, sure. He had race-winning pace, he could adapt from karts to cars, and he was now on the French single-seater ladder. But the public perception was modest. Talented, young, worth following. Not the obvious next Formula One star.
I don't know if I set the fastest lap, but I felt I was the fastest on track. But, it was not enough. He was defending very well.
And then 2021 happens, which is probably the first truly important year of his junior career. He split his season between the F3 Asian Championship and the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, also known as FRECA. In F3 Asian, he raced with Evans GP and finished 6th with 5 podiums. Useful because it gave him experience in a more powerful car on a more international calendar against drivers who were also trying to climb towards F3 and F2. But the bigger story was FRECA with R-Ace GP, where he finished 5th overall and was one of the strongest rookies in the entire field. By the end of this phase, Hadjar was on the path to becoming a Red Bull Junior team driver for 2022. Now, why does that matter so much? Because most junior drivers aren't just fighting lap times. They're fighting money, visibility, team politics, and the simple, brutal question of whether anyone powerful actually cares about them. Red Bull can be ruthless, we'll see plenty of that, but if they back you, you suddenly have access to a ladder that can genuinely reach Formula One. And in 2021, Hadjar made Red Bull care. That's the moment the lights actually switch on.
Alex, any advice on how to navigate Dr. Marko?
Enjoy it. Enjoy the process.
First, he raced in Formula Regional Asian with High-Tech Grand Prix and finished third with 2 wins and 134 points. Then he stepped into FIA Formula 3 with High-Tech, and this is where it gets genuinely exciting. He won 3 races and finished 4th in the championship with 123 points. His first win came in the Bahrain sprint race after Oliver Biermann got penalised. And look, a win's a win. Then he added proper victories at Silverstone and in the Spielberg feature race. 4th in FIA F3 isn't a title, but in the Red Bull world it's enough to get you taken very seriously, especially when the pace is that obvious. I genuinely think this is the year that saved his career later on, because in 2023, the perfect story breaks. He moved up to Formula 2 with High-Tech Pulse 8. Now, Formula 2 is where hype goes to get exposed. The cars are heavier, the tyres are trickier, the races are far more strategic, and the field is absolutely stuffed with drivers who were all the next big thing at some point. Hadjar finished 14th in the championship with 55 points. His teammate, Jake Crawford, finished just ahead of him with 57. There's also a brilliant little statistical footnote here. He's the winner of the Zandvoort sprint race, except that race was so chopped up by the weather and conditions that no points were awarded. So, depending entirely on how you want to frame it, he either had a win in the records or a basically winless season in any meaningful championship sense. And honestly, that's the perfect summary of his whole 2023. He also finished 7th in the Macau Grand Prix that year, which was useful experience, but hardly a career changer. But here's the thing. Red Bull didn't bin him. On the contrary, Hadjar got his first taste of actual Formula One weekends. He drove FP1 for AlphaTauri in Mexico City, then FP1 for Red Bull in Abu Dhabi, finishing 17th in both sessions. Now, 17th doesn't sound amazing, but rookie FP1 sessions aren't about looking like prime Senna. They're about proving to the team that you can operate inside an F1 environment. So 2023 was a weird one. But 2024 was the year all the questions got answered. He moved to Campos Racing in Formula 2, alongside fellow Red Bull junior Pepe Marti. And this time, he looked like a completely different driver. He won 4 feature races: Melbourne, Imola, Silverstone and Spa. And I want to stress that. Not sprint race chaos wins where half the order is upside down. Feature races, the main events. His advantage over his teammate was enormous too. Hadjar finished the season with 192 points, while Marti had 62. But even this comeback season wasn't clean. And honestly, that's what makes it such a perfectly Hadjar season. In Melbourne, he crossed the line first in the sprint race, but he was given a 10-second penalty for causing a start incident involving Gabriel Bortoleto and his own teammate, Pepe Marti. That dropped him from victory all the way down to 6th. Then in Monaco, he looked like he might pull off a massive result, only for strategy and race timing to snatch it away from him. By the end of the season, Hadjar was locked in a championship battle with Gabriel Bortoleto. And Bortoleto wasn't just some random junior rival. He was the reigning Formula 3 champion and already on his way to Formula 1 with Sauber. So this was a serious comparison. Hadjar went into the final weekend in Abu Dhabi with a genuine shot at the title. And then, the nightmare. He stalled on the grid in the decisive feature race. And that was basically it. Bortoleto took the title with 214.5 points. Hadjar finished runner-up with 192. Hadjar reportedly called it the worst moment of his life. And, honestly, for a racing driver at that stage of his career, it probably was. But here's the thing. Red Bull didn't judge him on that one stall. They looked at the whole season, and the whole season said he was ready. On the F1 side, 2024 mattered just as much. He drove FP1 for Red Bull at Silverstone in Sergio Perez's car. He took on reserve duties for both Red Bull and Racing Bulls. Then he drove FP1 again in Abu Dhabi. This time, and pay attention to this detail, in Max Verstappen's car. After that Abu Dhabi rookie test, Christian Horner publicly said Hadjar's pace had caught the team's attention, even throwing in a comparison with Yuki Tsunoda. Now, whether you take that as pure Red Bull mind games or genuine praise, it told you his internal stock had rocketed. And then, in December 2024, Racing Bulls confirmed Hadjar for the 2025 Formula 1 season, alongside Yuki Tsunoda. After everything, the 2023 doubts, the Melbourne penalty, the Monaco heartbreak, the Abu Dhabi stall, Hadjar had actually made it to Formula 1. However, his first F1 season started in the single most painful way imaginable.
What happened out there?
At the 2025 Australian Grand Prix, Hadjar qualified 11th. And that was good. Really good. For a rookie in a Racing Bulls on debut, 11th was strong. He was the top rookie on the entire grid. It should have been a promising start. Then the rain came. And on the formation lap, before the race had even started, before a single competitive corner, Hadjar lost control and crashed into the wall. He didn't even get to start his first Grand Prix. That is brutal. Not just because of the crash itself, but because of the timing. A rookie can recover from a lap 1 mistake. A rookie can recover from a duff strategy call. But crashing on the formation lap of your first ever Formula 1 race is the kind of thing that becomes a meme before the cars have even reached the first corner. And then, Helmut Marko made it worse. Marko reportedly called Hadjar's tearful reaction embarrassing, which, in one single sentence, basically sums up the entire Red Bull environment, doesn't it? Simply lovely. Welcome to Formula 1. But here's where the boxing and judo kid shows up. Hadjar handled the aftermath far better than he handled the corner. He said he found the moment embarrassing too, but insisted he and Marko were all good. He praised the support from the Hamilton family and from others in the paddock. China came next, and it was steadier. Not spectacular, but steadier. And he needed that more than anything in the world right then. At Suzuka, which, by the way, is one of the most demanding circuits on the calendar, Hadjar had serious seatbelt pain during qualifying. He even said he nearly crashed at turn 3 because of it. And yet, he still qualified 7th. In the race, he finished 8th and scored his first Formula 1 points. And just like that, the story flipped. He wasn't the emotional rookie who crashed before his debut anymore. He was the rookie who could qualify in the top 10 at Suzuka and deliver under pressure.
And once you have that point finish, you're like, okay, now I can actually do it.
From there, the season started building. He scored points in Saudi Arabia, Imola, Monaco, Spain, the Netherlands, Italy, Azerbaijan, Brazil, and Las Vegas. The results weren't always huge, but it was the pattern that mattered. He was becoming a regular points threat, and the public image around him shifted too. Reuters ran a profile about him flying 2 flags, France and Algeria, with Hadjar describing himself as the first Arab driver to make it to Formula One, and that gave his career a much wider cultural significance. Even Marko, who'd been so harsh after Australia, later called him the surprise of the season, which is a genuinely wild turnaround, isn't it? From embarrassing after race 1 to surprise of the season a few races later. By the second half of 2025, Hadjar was getting into Q3 more and more often, and looking less like a rookie trying to survive, and more like a driver building a case for a bigger seat. And then came Zandvoort. At the Dutch Grand Prix, Hadjar qualified 4th and finished 3rd, his first ever Formula One podium, and a massive moment for Racing Bulls as a team. Now, yes, the circumstances helped him. Late safety cars and Lando Norris retiring opened the door. But that is exactly how midfield podiums happen. You have to be close enough, clean enough, and fast enough to actually take the opportunity when the chaos lands in your lap. And Hadjar did precisely that. And honestly, that result is impressive by anyone's standards. You know what else would be impressive? This channel hitting 50,000 subscribers before September. So if you're enjoying the video so far, do me a favour and smash that subscribe button. It genuinely helps more than you'd think. And by late 2025, the Red Bull seat rumours were absolutely impossible to ignore. Yuki Tsunoda was under pressure in the senior team, Hadjar was rising fast, and everyone in the paddock knew that Red Bull's second seat, the one next to Max Verstappen, is one of the most brutal jobs in all of motorsport. In September, Hadjar said he hadn't signed anything. He admitted the main Red Bull team was an ambition, but he refused to confirm a deal. But then, in December, it became official. Red Bull promoted Hadjar to partner Max Verstappen for 2026. Tsunoda was moved into a reserve role, and Arvid Lindblad was promoted up into Racing Bulls. So Hadjar ended his rookie season with 51 points, 12th in the Drivers' Championship, 1 podium, and a promotion to the single most dangerous teammate seat in Formula One.
As a result of today's podium, Isack will end up at Red Bull at some point. How this dynamic is going to work with you two in the team?
Terrible. I don't want to be next to Max. I don't like him.
Which brings us to 2026, and the season everyone wanted answers about. The big question was simple. Would the pace still be there in the senior Red Bull, in a faster car, under far more pressure? In Australia, the answer looked like a resounding yes. He qualified 3rd on his Red Bull Racing debut. But then, the race gave him absolutely nothing. He retired early with an engine issue. So, once again, in classic Hadjar fashion, the performance and the result point in completely different directions. China was better. He finished 8th and got points on the board. Not spectacular, but important, because it meant the Red Bull chapter had officially started for real. Japan was quieter, a 12th place finish. Then came Miami, and with it, yet another controversy. Hadjar originally qualified 9th, but he was disqualified from qualifying because a section of the Red Bull floor extended beyond the permitted limits. Team principal Laurent Mekies said no performance advantage was intended or gained, which made it sound like a team-side technical error rather than anything Hadjar himself had done. But the result was the same regardless. He went to the back of the grid, and then his race ended in a DNF. Canada was much better. Hadjar finished 5th, which was his best clean official result of the season at that point, and a real sign that the early pace wasn't just one freak qualifying lap in Australia. Monaco, however, which turned into one of the strangest weekends of his entire career. Hadjar drove through power unit issues, survived a long and incredibly stressful race, and finished third. There was even a red flag era investigation into whether Red Bull had worked improperly on the car, but the stewards took no action. So, for a glorious moment, it looked like Hadjar had his first podium as a Red Bull racing driver. And then the classification got messy. Alpine appealed Pierre Gasly's penalties, the order got reshuffled, and Hadjar lost the podium in the official classification. Spain then handed him 6th place, another solid result, and by the time I'm making this video, Hadjar is 9th in the championship with 34 points after 7 rounds. And here's where the story gets genuinely interesting, because the car Hadjar is being measured in is, by Red Bull's own admission, a bit of a disaster.
The best ever was in Monza. In Monza, when you destroyed the car. I destroyed the car!
This isn't the imperious machine that Verstappen bullied to 4 titles. The 2026 regulations tore everything up. New aero, new chassis concepts, and crucially, Red Bull's own in-house power unit, built with Ford instead of leaning on Honda. And Red Bull got it wrong. Team boss Laurent Mekies openly admitted the RB22 showed significant shortcomings after a brutal Chinese Grand Prix. And that was after a pre-season where they'd actually looked decent in Bahrain testing. So, when you look at Verstappen sitting on 55 points and Hadjar on 34, you have to remember that 55 is not a Verstappen number. That's not a champion stamping his authority. That's a 4-time world champion scrapping for 7th and 8th in a car he visibly cannot stand. And he has not been quiet about it. This is maybe the most fascinating subplot of the whole season, because Verstappen has spent 2026 absolutely savaging his own equipment in public. In China, he told his engineers over the radio, "The car's undrivable. We never had anything this bad, with everything together." He described every lap as like survival, said, "There's no balance, I cannot lean on the car," and added that from lap 1 of these new regulations, he hadn't enjoyed driving the thing at all. He compared the racing to Mario Kart, labelled it a joke, and even joked he was practicing for races by collecting red mushrooms. This is a man who, by near universal agreement, is still the best driver on the grid, and he's basically telling the world his car is a brick. Why does that matter for Hadjar? Because it completely reframes the comparison. The single hardest thing about being Verstappen's teammate has always been that he could take an evil-handling car, throw it upside down on setup, and make it work anyway. But in 2026, even that superpower has stopped working. He's already had 2 retirements, including running 6th in China before a power unit cooling problem killed his race. So the gap between the 2 Red Bulls is being measured on a much more level playing field than at any point in Verstappen's reign. Both drivers are wrestling the same unloved machine, neither can hide its flaws, and that's exactly the scenario every previous teammate dreamed of and never got. And against that backdrop, what's Hadjar actually doing? He's hanging in. At one stage of the season, he was actually leading the qualifying battle 2-1, beating Verstappen in Australia and Japan, and lapped within 0.12 seconds of him on 4 other occasions. That is genuinely remarkable for a kid in his first year at the senior team. But, and this is the honest part, the race day picture is harsher. When both cars have finished, Hadjar has come home an average of 53 seconds behind Verstappen, skewed partly by a penalty-laden Canada and a Barcelona race where he botched the start and finished 67 seconds back. Single-lap pace? He's right there. Racecraft and consistency over a full Sunday? There's still a clear gap. What's most telling, though, is how Hadjar talks about it, because he's refreshingly free of spin. He's being blunt that the car is what it is right now, very hard to drive, while quietly proud that he's not too far off despite it. And the way he describes living next to Verstappen is almost a tribute. He's talked about there being no time to be lazy, about how every time Verstappen sets a lap, it's the highest level you've ever seen, and he has to dig very deep just to be close. So, after all of that, how good is Isack Hadjar really? Well, here's the honest answer. He is not the cleanest junior career monster of his generation. If you put him next to someone like Kimi Antonelli, the difference is obvious. Antonelli's record looks like a wonder kid demolishing every single category he touched. Hadjar's record looks far more jagged. Good years, weak years, penalties, missed titles, emotional flashpoints, the lot. But I don't think that makes him less interesting. If anything, it might make him more interesting, because a jagged career is a much better test of who someone actually is. The only real question left is whether he can turn the chaos into consistency. Because right now, Hadjar's career is essentially the story of a driver whose speed keeps surviving the mess. The next step, the whole ball game really, is making the mess smaller. If he does that, then Red Bull might have found a lot more than just another temporary second driver to feed to Verstappen. Given they fix the cars, of course, and finally find some pace in them. They might have found someone who can actually grow into that seat and stay there. But if he doesn't, then the exact same system that promoted him so quickly can turn on him just as fast. Do you think Hadjar lasts more than 2 seasons next to Verstappen, or does the Red Bull seat eat him alive like it has so many others? Smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.